welcome to the Accelerativ Thrust podcast. My name is Erik.
Oh, snap. That's my name, too.
Oh, shoot. Yeah. What's my name? I can't even remember. What's my name?
Motherfucking Snoop Dogg.
Motherfucking Snoop Dogg. Yeah.
No, he's Dan and I'm Erik.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yes.
What's that? How did that song go? It was like, what's my name? Snoop. I don't remember. That's terrible. All I know is that first...
He sounded just like him.
like unsure of himself. Like that was before he became
like he's literally asking what his name is.
He's like, what's my name? That's before he became a big star. He didn't even know who his name
He got lost halfway through spelling it. D-O-double-G-Y D-O-double-G. Oh shit.
I gotta say though that I was actually just thinking about this the other day. Doggy Style. Mm-hmm. It might be one of the best debut rap albums in history.
Yeah, it's really good. I don't know. That's a funny one though, because he is on the Chronic so much that almost feels like his debut album.
Yeah, but I mean, that it's weird how a lot of people don't really understand that the Chronic was actually more of like it barely was a Dre record. It was more like a showcase of like death row rappers.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, it was weird. But
yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Both of those are just awesome. But everything that Snoop made after that, I haven't really dug.
I really got into the Blue Carpet for some reason.
I don't even know
like
that one.
A way later record, and I think maybe Drop It Like It's Hot is on there, but it's like that kind of production all the way through.
Okay.
And so it's like pretty cool. It's kind of out there. And I don't know. Something weird about me is I love gangs. I love street gangs. And so he talks about being a Crip a lot, which I like. So
you love street gangs. I did not know that.
I really
about
do.
You.
Like, if I were smarter, I would have probably gone to school to be like
a gangster,
an anthropology major, and just study street gangs. I'm pretty serious.
Well, actually. I mean, they're an interesting aspect of our culture, no doubt. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie that like, I mean, if I saw one, my first instinct would be like, I'm terrified of them because of the way that they have been portrayed in the news. I remember there was a big gang problem in Muscatine, but
yeah, that's what ignited my passion.
Were you actually like you saw like the graffiti and you're like, wow, that's beautiful? And
yeah, I thought it was really cool.
The rest of the town was like because that was like, I remember like these reports were like showing up in our local paper, the Muscatine Journal. Those of you who haven't, who don't know by now, Erik and I both come from the town Muscatine, Iowa. And
as do every one of our listeners.
Every single one. I guarantee it. They don't even the ones that like think that they grew up somewhere else. It really was just Muscatine with a different name.
I mean, that's actually probably true.
Probably.
They're all kind of the same town.
Yeah, pretty much.
Anyway.
In Iowa, but I remember there were like these reports showing up in like our local paper that was like warning parents of signs that your son or daughter might be involved in a gang. And there were rumors of, and I don't know how true they were. I do understand the interest though, Erik, because I remember like I would read that there were like initiations and fights, and I would hear from kids at school that, I don't know, in the back alley of Sunmart on Friday night at 11 p.m., there's going to be a whole bunch of them, and I just remember thinking, if only I had a car, I could drive by and check this out.
Yeah. No, I think what I liked is okay.
And I shouldn't have really said drive by, like, considering how, like,
I had just assumed you meant a drive by.
If only I could drive. No, that's not what I meant. But I just thought like I was thinking drive by to see if they're actually there, and then I would like leave,
right.
But like I wouldn't stick around for that. But then I realized that I said drive by, and that could be taken the wrong way. If there are any gang members listening, I'm sorry.
If there are any gang members listening,
contact Eric.
Can I be in your gang?
Well, why didn't you just start one?
I'm old, but I'll get jumped in. It's all good.
Why didn't you just start one?
Well, I don't think I was friends with the kind of people that would be in a street gang.
See, but
you know what I mean?
But street gangs are all about getting new friends.
Well, yeah,
I mean, if you think about it,
true.
I mean, just recruit people you don't know. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, but I don't like people I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I've never been in a band with people I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, bands are for friends. Bands are the you don't really want to meet new. Well, yeah, you do want to meet new friends in bands, but I mean, most bands are started out of a desire to jam with your friends.
That's true.
A
lot of my bands have ended up being more similar to street gangs than bands.
Oh yeah.
No, but sometimes it felt that way.
Oh, okay.
No, I think I love gangs because I don't. It's really weird. I think I'm a nice person, and I don't know if there were a such thing as moral good. All right, I think that I would fall into that, but I also love the idea of messing with society, like to a bad level, like terrorizing people. I think that it's an interesting element of our society that a report in a newspaper can cause fear. It's not real. It's not really happening. It's information that you put into your brain and it made you afraid. And I just think that's interesting. And I also think that like gangs are kind of like cults, except they're also really criminal, I guess, whereas most cults might be violent or whatever, but I guess a lot of times they're criminal too. Anyway, I like cults and I like terror. And so, at least as far as concepts go. And so, I think street gangs kind of just fall into that for me. And I kind of blame suicidal tendencies and probably the movie Colors.
Oh, sure.
For a lot of it too. I just thought, I don't know, I felt this like, and I'm sure it was because of punk rock and skateboarding and stuff, but I just felt this kinship to like Los Angeles skate punk stuff, and it always had that like gang edge to it, And so, yeah, a lot of things combined to make me have an interest in street gangs.
Yeah, no,
it's not just that I'm crazy. I mean, maybe.
Well, yeah, no, actually, since you clarified it and you explained it the way you did, it makes total sense. Especially the idea, like you said, of the media manipulating ways of thought. And how, I mean, it's happening. It happens all the time, and it's probably worse now than ever.
Yeah.
It's been this fire that's been escalating in our culture for years, and yeah, it's interesting. But I guess like I can definitely see the comparisons to cults and gangs. I guess maybe like the one difference that maybe perhaps that I guess I would see from my perspective between cults and gangs is that it seems like gangs are either there to help their communities and then maybe terrorize other communities, or just terrorize society in general, as you put it. I think cults, they're kind of more about terrorizing their own community within.
Yeah, I don't know. It depends on what kind of cult.
Well, I
mean, that sounds ridiculous, but
But I mean,
I don't know. There usually is someone at the top manipulating the rest.
yeah,
So,
yeah, and like if you, I don't know, like I guess like I kind of wonder for better or for worse, and this is in no way am I advocating like mass suicide or anything like that, but if you just would have left,
I mean,
if you just would have left like Heaven's Gate alone, then they just would have, killed themselves and maybe not harmed anybody. I don't know if that's true, but that's just harmed the people within them or themselves. And
right.
I wonder if they would have.
I see what you're saying.
I wonder if they would have really done any true harm to anybody else. It makes me wonder sometimes when I hear like stuff like that. But then you also have like guys like Charles Manson, who technically, if you look at like, it's interesting. One of the only people that's actually gone to prison for not really technically committing a murder.
Yeah,
it's
for incitement.
For incitement, yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting.
I agree.
Charles Manson, of course, could be considered a cult leader, and of course, that guy was probably out to really harm people.
Yeah, I think so.
And so, yeah, I guess maybe it comes down to what type of gang and what type of cult is. This all just basically comes down to, it's pretty funny. But
I love this conversation.
Yeah, it's a fantastic. This is glorious.
Our listeners are like, what in the hell?
We're having a great time. We are having a great. You know what? The safest place to be in America right now is listening to this podcast.
Yeah, because we're explaining that you actually don't have to be afraid of these groups. Just stop reading and watching things that tell you to be afraid of them.
Just trust.
How often have you actually had your life impacted by a terror cell, a gang, or a cult? And honestly, if you have, I apologize. I'm not trying to be callous. But I'm going to say the majority of our listeners have never had those things impact their lives. So, like, it's all just propaganda almost. Like, be afraid of these outsider groups. And there's really not a lot of reason for it. Anyway, I don't know. That's my 2 cents on gangs, cults, and terrorists.
This is really a beautiful thing we've stumbled upon, Eric. This is glorious. I'm very proud of ourselves right now.
Oh, me too. Yeah, I've been harboring this since the first episode. I've wanted to talk about it. So,
well, there you go, man. It magically appeared on episode 26. Maybe what
which
we
is
should...
gangster disciple numbers, by the way.
Really? You're shitting me. Okay.
I am shitting you.
Well, I mean, I'm gullible, Eric. Haven't you figured that out?
And I'm a pretty good liar. So.
You really are. You've made
we make
me
a good team.
You've just single-handedly made me believe that gangs and cults can do no wrong just now. And that's amazing.
Well, I mean, really only to themselves and other cults and gangs. That'd be a really funny and interesting story or graphic novel for someone to write, where the cults are street gangs.
Huh. Yeah.
I'd read that.
Yeah, it's kind of happened already. Like I can't think of any certain examples right now, but there has been examples of like, the Tick. This is a hilarious example actually, but like the Tick, like I'm watching the new series on Amazon Prime right now, which came out 3 years ago, and I mean the villainous sort of, if you really think about it, the stereotypical like 80s villain in like I don't know, like Cobra Commander. I jumped from the Tick to G.I. Joe. I'm scatterbrained right now, but like Cobra
jumped like a tick to G.I. Joe.
There you go. God, ticks. I'm more scared of ticks than I am of street gangs or cults. No, seriously. Colts.
Oh man,
I know.
What if you ran into a tick gang?
Well, okay. Then they might as well call themselves the Lyme disciples, because that's the thing. Gangs and cults cannot give you Lyme disease, and
That's true.
Lyme disease is a terrifying thing. I mean, it really is.
is.
I mean, if you really think about it, but okay. So I jumped from the tick to GI Joe to Lyme disease. Where are we? Oh, GI Joe, Cobra Commander. I mean, basically, Cobra Commander is like a cult leader. I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
if you really think about it, that's kind of what a lot of the stereotypical organizations in 80s comic books were. They were kind of
like crime cults.
crime cults. Dude, that is the best name for a band ever. Crime cult.
Well, let's see who starts it first.
Feel free to rip us off, everyone.
Yeah. Let us review it
Lettuce
when you put something out.
in a salad.
Ooh, speaking of reviews, oh my God, I feel like
It took us.
maybe we should get to some music.
Yeah, that
took a
might,
lot out of me.
That might not be a
That
bad
was some
idea.
heavy duty bullshit coming out of our mouths.
Absolutely heavy duty bullshit. But you
I'm
know
a little
what?
spent.
I really like heavy duty bullshit sometimes, though. So that's
Me too.
we really.
I don't even remember what started this whole street gang thing.
Snoop Dogg,
Oh, right, the Crips and
Crips.
blue carpet treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool record. You should
Yeah,
check it out.
I do like Drop It When It's Hot. That is such a great song. Or Drop It While It's Hot. Which one is it? When or
I
while?
think like.
Oh,
It's
Drop
Hot.
It Like It's Hot. Okay, Drop It When It's Hot.
I mean, that's a good idea too.
Yeah, that's true. And you really should drop
Drop
things.
it if it's hot.
Yeah, in both metaphorical and real ways. Because if you drop something that is hot, that is like, say, a song that is really hot, that's a good idea to drop the song when it's hot.
That's true.
But also, if you're holding on to something that's really hot.
Okay, I thought you were going to talk about maybe if you had like, some bad Chinese food or something.
Well, okay. So now we're
Like drop it if it's hot.
yeah,
You don't want to
okay.
keep it inside.
Gotcha. Oh God, I actually have a story to tell
no.
about hot Chinese food, but it'll be for another time because we really do need to get into these reviews.
Oh man. Okay.
It's a funny one because it involves both my dad and my uncle arguing. Maybe I will let you guys know. Maybe we'll talk about it after we're done with
Bonus
the reviews.
content.
Bonus content, aka after the reviews.
Oh,
Seems
my
like
God.
everything we talk about is bonus content these days.
I know.
Um,
And while we're at it, though, I will say if you are getting ready to turn this off, we will be reviewing a record by Brazil, right?
yes,
That's
Brazil
a local.
was.
It's going to be our first classic local review.
Yes,
So this is from 1999.
Yep, they were.
Love lost her job today.
They were an
So-
amazing group, and we'll get into that.
So, yep. So just in case you were going to turn off this episode because it's utter bullshit, that'll be coming up, and it'll probably be just slightly bullshit. So
Yes.
anyway, ready when you are.
Okay. I'm going first this time, right, Eric?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, so the first one I'm going to talk about is Aesop Rock's Bazooka Tooth. So Aesop Rock, for those of you who are unfamiliar, well, first of all, he's an artist that, of course, was reviewed as one of Eric's picks with Malibu Ken, his collaboration he did fairly recently with Tobacco. Aesop Rock's been a rapper in the New York kind of underground scene for a long time. I think his first album actually came out in like 97 or something. And so he's been doing the rap stuff for a long time. And it's interesting too that there was that one rapper that came out, I don't know, I think like 10 years ago called Aesop Rocky. I've always wondered if that kind of contributed to Aesop Rock kind of becoming more sort of well known. Like, he's not mainstream, but he's definitely gotten a lot more recognition, because I wonder how many times somebody typed in ASAP Rocky and it brought up Aesop Rock on accident or something like that. I kind of wonder if some of Aesop's sort of newfound success could be attributed to that. But also, I mean, he's on Rhymesayers, which is Atmosphere's label, and they're huge. Anyway, so aside from all of that, the record that I wanted to talk about today is Bazooka Tooth. This is his fourth album that came out on the label Def Jux, who, as I've mentioned many times on this show, was one of my favorite hip-hop labels in the early 2000s, like early to mid 2000s. And I wanted to talk about it because it actually initially was not one of my favorite records from him. Probably my favorite record overall is Labor Days, which is the one that came before it. And that one had kind of more of a, I guess you could say, sort of a jazzier kind of one-note production on it from Blockhead. And that style just fit perfectly with what Aesop Rock was doing at the time. And I've listened to Bazooka Tooth quite a bit, and I've always liked it. But I think I appreciate it now more than I ever did. It is a very dense, very kind of hyperactive sort of record that kind of moves fast into a lot of different directions. And if you actually listen to Labor Days and then this record, Labor Days came out in 2001. This one came out in 2003. And it's amazing in terms of production. It almost doesn't even sound like the same rapper. Now, Aesop's style of rapping is, has pretty much remained consistent. I mean, he pretty much has always sounded like he does as far as rhyming. But in terms of production, it sounds like two totally different artists. This one was just a lot crazier as far as production goes, and it's got this weird sort of New York identity to it that I really feel like when I'm listening to it, I really feel like I'm sort of running through or jogging through like the streets of downtown New York. Like, that's kind of how the beats like sound to me. Most of the production on this was handled by Aesop Rock himself, as well as LP did some stuff on it as well. And I think even Blockhead might have done some things. But it's a rap record that at first listen, it didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And over the years, it's just grown on me and grown on me and grown on me. Like I said, I always liked it from the first listen, but it's gotten to the point now where it's probably one of my favorites from him. It's just a record that is not afraid to. It just sort of sounds to me like Aesop Rock at this moment in time was just sort of kind of did like an anything goes approach in terms of production. There's all kinds of like crazy sounds and samples going on. The New York identity, of course, similar to the LP record that I reviewed last time. You can hear like the sort of influence of old school hip hop while also very much moving forward. It's a very forward thinking record, I think. There's a lot of really awesome sort of interludes in between the songs that some of them are just absolutely hilarious. Aesop's rhyme books, they've always had, to me, it just seems like he writes a novel per song. It's just insane. And the subject matter goes from, here to there, but it all seems to have one cohesive sort of concept at the same time. It's got a lot of great guest appearances from Camp Low in this project called Party Fun Action Committee, which was a joke R&B / rap group that included Blockhead. And they put out one record on Definitive Jux around this time as well. LP's on it. Mr. Liff is on it, who was another great Def Jux MC. And then there's also a lot of talking that goes on in between some of the songs. Like, it almost invokes this sort of feeling of Aesop Rock and his friends were just kind of going around and taping people and getting them to say bazooka tooth for some reason. There's a lot of that kind of going on, and it's hilarious. It's a rap record that I feel is just very well aware of what it is, and I think it accomplished what it set out to do, which is just to be as just fucked up as possible at the time, but also paying tribute to, or just paying homage to, what came before it. And I mean, some of these lyrics, I have an example. I just have to read this. The second track called NY Electric. Just to give you an example of the type of rhyming that Aesop Rock, and this was 2003. Skipper's out of happy pills again. He's in the neighbor's garbage. He's making paper dolls decorated with targets. He's labeling the dolls with the names of shitty rap artists, then tearing out the still beating heart from the loose leaf carcass. I ordered a hovercraft off the back page of an Archie comic, built in 3 days to float above snarky comments. It's just, the word flow is just so, it's just stupid in the best way. And then he follows that up with, my gills call the East River Rock bottom home with three-eyed guppies and seahorse mutations. What rapper talks about this? It's no wonder that in 2003 this was just this was outsider rap music or something. It's insane. Another reason why I decided I could have picked any Aesop Rock record, honestly, Eric, but another reason why I wanted to pick this is I kind of feel that while I really enjoyed Labor Days, and it probably, like I said, is still my favorite record from him, I feel that Bazooka Tooth is kind of where Aesop Rock started to really find his own sound, because this was the first time that you really heard Aesop Rock do his own production on things. And then eventually he evolved from, LP would jump on and do a beat, Blockhead would do a beat, to where he's producing everything himself now, which I think is just amazing. So this is kind of the record, to me anyway, that I view it as the record where we start to see Aesop's evolution into what he does now. So yeah, and it's just to me it's a classic rap record. It's a classic Aesop record. Really, you can't go wrong with anything that Aesop was doing around this time, but really you can't go wrong with anything that Aesop's ever put out. So it's just it's hard. It was hard for me to pick. I almost picked the last record that he put out, the newest one, Spirit World Field Guide, because that one is just as good and just as crazy, and I would say just as forward thinking as this in 2003. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And for an artist, in my opinion, in rap music, especially in rap music, because I find that a lot of rappers, they kind of don't stay as fresh after so many years. And I mean, that's true with really any genre of music. But with Aesop Rock, I think everything he's put out has been just fantastic. What did you think of this one, Eric?
Yeah. I thought it was really good. I don't have a lot to add. Yeah, the production's really cool. It is very dense, like beyond dense. You almost have to dig through the music to find the song, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
Like, it's just, yeah, it has a lot of different types of samples, from like soul music, jazz, big synths. Like a couple of things on here could have been on Malibu Ken, and I wouldn't have been that shocked. You know,
Absolutely.
it had a big synthesizer sound to it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like old school beats. Just a second.
Oh, that was
Sorry,
the coolest
that
noise
was the
ever.
cat.
Oh my gosh!
He's being a
You know what? We
little
should have
jerk.
your cat should be a guest on our show sometime.
Oh my god!
Like,
Ugh.
so all of his answers will just make that noise.
Yeah. Here, give me 1 second. I'm gonna
Okay.
do something about this. We might have to edit this out.
I don't know. I'm kind of
The sound of me beating my cat. No, I'm just kidding. I'm gonna put him in the other room.
yeah. Hey, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty. Gosh, man, that is a intense cat. Wow.
Okay. Oof. What
That-
were you saying
Oh,
now?
I was saying. Well, the first thing I said was "Here, kitty, kitty," and
Oh,
then
I see.
then I said, "That is an intense cat." Like
Yeah.
making that sort of noise. Is that like?
Well, my whole desk is microphonic because of my microphone arm.
Oh, I love that. Term,
It's like an
microphonic.
arm that attaches to the desk. I don't actually have a microphone for an arm.
Dude, I like that. I like that term microphonic though. I've never heard that.
Yeah, it's like when something that shouldn't be becomes a microphone, like
Sure.
my desk.
Oh,
See, you hear
man,
that?
that's amazing. I'm starting to think maybe that should be our theme song.
Just me tapping.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
like
well.
just do like a melody, like. Do, 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 do.
I'm going to start my review over, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so Aesop Rock, Bazooka 2. Depending on what editing happens, we just had an issue with my cat. So, yeah, so I was just saying that the production is super wild and super dense. And I was saying you have to dig through the music to find the song. It's like so much is happening, and there's so much effects on everything that it's almost like purposely I'm not trying to sound smart here, I just can't think of another word, but obfuscated. Like it's purposefully thick. You can't see through it. You
Right.
can't hear through it. And I think that I think that's really cool because I think it almost works better that way because Aesop Rock's delivery is so conversational and informative, but also like hard. Like
Yeah.
he never really pulls back, if that makes any sense. It's always
Yeah, his-
it's like really just hard all the time.
His cadence is like a machine gun.
Yeah, and so if the music were sparse or soft or something, that would come off as if he were actually trying to sound hard and trying to be intimidating and things like that. But I think with the music the way it is, that's not how it comes off. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. The beats were cool. All the samples were cool. And yeah, I don't have a lot to add to what you said about it, Dan. I think that Aesop Rock is one of those things that's just like so solid and like you said, accomplishes what it sets out to do, that
Yeah.
it's like, this is a ridiculous comparison, but my wife and I recently watched a Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
Yeah.
I think it was Dream Warriors. And we watch a lot of crappy horror movies, and we have a really great time laughing at them. And, because either they try to be funny and they are, or they try to be funny and they fail, or they try to be good and they're funny. Lots of different. But the Nightmare on Elm Street movies are so like good and polished and exactly what they want to be that it's like you just watch them and you're like, yeah, that was super great. It's not. It's like a different kind of reaction.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I'm starting to feel about Aesop Rock. Is just like, yeah, he's just nailing it. It's just perfection, and what are you going to do about it? And so it makes for a really fun listen. But I wasn't, shocked or anything by it. But that's fine. It's like this constant state of shock, which is also really cool. So,
what'd you think of all the like talking parts? Like I love the the end of the first track, the self where he's like, "You don't want me smiling at your cameras."
Right.
And then just other stuff like cameras and guns, one of y'all's going to shoot me to death. And then there's that one part at the beginning of one of the later songs where Murs is on it, and he's all like, hey, stupid, you're listening to Bazooka Tooth. And then he's like, dental cannons, molar pistols, shit like that. Like,
yeah. There was a lot of great interludes and like sort of like parts that sounded like maybe they're on an answering machine.
Yeah.
Things like that.
There's also that one part where that guy's like, I'm saying Bazooka Tooth, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, and he's like, Bazooka Tooth, bitch. It's just like ridiculous. And then like, oh yeah, the honeycomb interlude was my favorite one though. Like, I don't know if you remember that one. It's like, I think it was the honeycomb cereal commercial, and it was just like Aesop Rock was singing along with it. Like, it's a wonderful night. Or a wonderful time. Yep. It's a wonderful time. And a honeycomb. And then you actually hear Aesop like, or maybe it's not Aesop, but I think it is. And at the end, he's just like, so stupid. That's why I'm like, sorry, I'm taking too much time on this release, but I love that. It's like, this record clearly was just not afraid to get stupid.
Yeah, for sure.
It was great.
Yeah, it's super good. I like that.
All right. So, what surprises, what sweets do you have for me, Eric?
Well, the first record I am going to talk about is a group called Q'65. The record is called Revolution. It came out in 1966, and I heard about this. I follow this Instagram page called Scene in Between, and all it is like photographs, like found photos of people playing in like psych bands and things from the 60s, and it's really fun to look at the equipment and the clothes and gear and stuff. But in the background of one of them was a Q'65 poster, and I had no idea what Q'65 was. I'd never heard of them in my life. So I checked out this record, and yeah, so it's basically fairly traditional blues influenced psych stuff. It's from the Netherlands. Apparently there was a scene called the Nederbeat, which was sort of the Dutch answer to kind of garage rock and British invasion stuff, and a lot of the blues kind of rock stuff that was happening at the time, and the psych stuff. So Nederbeat, I'd never heard of it, so I always am interested when I find a new scene or whatever. But yeah, like I said, this is pretty traditional. It's got, blues. It's got, they cover Spoonful, which literally every single psych blues band from the time covered Spoonful, and it's a good song, so it makes sense. But they also mix in a lot of Middle Eastern scales and drums to an extent, super fuzzy guitars, trippy production with vibrato and tremolo, and everything's panned hard to the left and right, and you've heard it before. Whether it be Their Satanic Majesty's Request by the Stones, or if you're into like 13th Floor Elevators, or I don't even know, Holy Modal Rounders, all kinds of, there's a million groups apparently, that sound like this. But what really I liked about this was I thought they had a heavier sound to them, the songs themselves. They did a lot of half steps in their chord progressions, which is something that doesn't happen very often in this kind of music because it's really disorienting and kind of gross. But it also adds like this kind of darkness to it that not a lot of people did until like grunge came around, and like grunge used that half step movement all the time. It like is sort of the secret sauce if you were ever going to like try to start writing grunge songs. Half step is how you do it. But anyway, I also liked excuse me, that they had, compared to their counterparts, I felt like they had darker lyrics, more misanthropic lyrics, like a little more, I don't want to say this is like proto-goth or anything, but it's super moody, and the lyrics are super internalized and dark and seem to kind of foreshadow that kind of songwriting. And I just think that has a really aggressive vocal sound too, really buzzy. And there's a bit of an accent, which sometimes just adds to the otherness of this, the sound of this, because I would put this on the same level as maybe like the Sonics or other stuff from that time where you're just like, wow. Or even like the Trash Men, like where you're like, how did it get this far off track? And so the record as it is on Spotify has 6 added tracks, which I don't think really add anything to it. But the release as it was put out, I think is really cool. And if you're into all that psych stuff and blues rock, I hate saying blues rock because it automatically makes me think of Eric Clapton, but I'm talking more like the Stones and things like that. If you're into that stuff already, I think this is worth checking out. I think you'll find stuff on it you really like. So what do you think, Dan?
Yeah, this is great. I mean, I 100% agree with you. It's pretty traditional. It's not pushing a lot of boundaries. There definitely is a lot of stuff that everything you said, everything you compared it to, the Stones, the 13th Floor Elevators. It reminded me too of this other group. I think it's called the West Coast Art Experimental Band or something like that. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it's the Pop Experimental Band. Are you familiar with them at all, Eric?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kind of reminded me a little bit of that. Definitely had some really trippy sort of, tones, which I really like. Also kind of put me in mind, not the songs and the sound or the style of music, not necessarily, but some of it put me in mind of the first Pink Floyd record, the
sure.
Piper
Absolutely.
at the Gates of Dan, the Piper at the Gates of Dan.
That's your next solo record right there.
I think that's our next podcast title.
Oh, snap.
The Piper at the Gates of Dan. But yeah, that might also be my next solo record. The Piper at the Gates of Dan. I don't like to give away secrets, though. But you're all hearing it. Anyway, the Piper at the Gates of Dawn. It reminded me of some of that, and I think that's great. Yeah, it's just, if you're really into that sort of 60s, when did this come out? 68, you said?
66.
66. Yeah, if you're into this, like the psychedelic sort of, not really too experimental, but, just sort of, like sort of an eerie tone. You're going to love this. And I would say, even if you're into like the Beatles, it really just kind of, or the Beach Boys, it has that sort of eeriness to it, but also just really well written. I don't want to say pop songs, but definitely like, structured pretty much very traditionally. I mean, there is that sort of freak out 13-minute closing song, where they kind of get a little carried away, but it's not, it's not like Sonic Youth carried away or anything,
Right.
But it's cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I can't really add much more to it. I think this is really great stuff.
Nice.
For sure. Okay, so that brings us to Queens of the Stone Age. Rated R. This is their second record that came out in the year 2000. Queens of the Stone Age is a band that I've been a fan of since their big record, Songs for the Deaf, the one that came out after this. I knew about them before that, but never really listened to them. A friend of mine, his name is Chris. He now lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but he lived here in Iowa. He played me this on cassette, actually. He had like a dubbed cassette copy of it or something in his car, and I really started to enjoy it. And it actually, that's what kind of prompted me to get Songs for the Deaf. But this record, to me, is probably their best record. For those of you who don't know who Queens of the Stone Age are, and I'm assuming that a large majority of you have probably at least heard of them, because, I mean, they were pretty popular and still are a very popular rock band. It's started out, I guess, kind of as the solo project of Josh Homme, who was in Caius with, I think his name is Chris Goss, who he was also in. That guy has also kind of been influential in sort of the whole sludge metal scene or whatever. Because Caius were definitely sort of in that sort of vein, a lot more than Queens of the Stone Age. But the first Queens of the Stone Age record, it sounded more in that vein, kind of, but not really. But it definitely was leaning more towards kind of like a sludge or doom metal sort of thing. Not really, though. And then this one just kind of, it just sort of seemed Josh Homme kind of did like a anything goes kind of approach. But at the same time, I mean, in terms of like the songwriting goes, it's definitely a little off kilter, but it's also very, I know people who are into like just pure pop music that like Queens of the Stone Age. So it's kind of, I wouldn't call Josh Homme a standard pop songwriter, but he does write some really great songs that are just really catchy and kind of ear candy, if you ask me. But anyway, Queens of the Stone Age, every album is kind of a rotating lineup. So it's different people with a lot of different guests. On this record in particular, the first track, it's called Feel Good Hit of the Summer. And it's literally just, it's just like the same like 6 substances repeated over and over again in this melody, which is just so stupid, but so catchy. And what I find really interesting is, I'm not sure if you knew this or if you did any research on this or not, Eric, but the first track includes guest vocals from Rob Halford.
Wow.
Rob Halford is helping him sing nicotine, Valium, Vicodin, marijuana, ecstasy, and alcohol. Cocaine. And it's like...
You really can't tell it's him.
Yeah, you can't tell it's him. I mean, I'm not even sure if you can really hear him in the mix. Like, I think, because I think a bunch of people were like singing that. Like,
gotcha.
With him. It's so weird. So that's a strange beginning to the album, but the production and the songwriting and the guitar playing and just the entire package of this record, the delivery is just so amazing to me. I mean, such great songs. Like the Lost Art of Keeping a Secret has this breakdown where it does this like robotic, almost like Devo thing with the guitar. It doesn't sound like Devo, but it it just literally, he makes the guitar sound like a robot that is just like malfunctioning and shuts off for like a split second and then goes into like this next bridge or whatever. It's just absolutely mind blowing. And then there's like a couple of songs, like Josh Homme doesn't sing every song. Mark Lanigan from Screaming Trees, and also he's done a lot of solo records, was heavily involved and sang a couple songs on this and Songs for the Deaf. And then Nick Oliveri, the bass player, sings 2 songs, Quick and to the Pointless and Tension Head, which Tension Head has some of the heaviest music I've ever heard. It's so crazy, and almost gets into like something like Today Is the Day territory for a second. And then just all of a sudden goes into like this really just super relaxing instrumental acoustic track called Lightning Song. And then the album closer, though, I Think I Lost My Headache. That's the one that really did it for me. It's like this 8-minute song, and it's this repetitive sort of bass line over and over again until like the bass and the guitar and everything fades out at the end, and then closes with a saxophone doing the same line for like a minute and a half. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on this record that you could call kind of experimental, but it's not experimental music. It's just more sounds like he's doing a lot of experimenting in the studio, which I think that's what Queens of the Stone Age is about. Like Aesop Rock, I could really pick any Queens record, though, because, again, this is a band that I like everything they've put out. Yeah, if you're a fan of, the sludge metal that Josh was doing in Caius, if you're a fan of, I don't know, even something like Nirvana or even like the Melvins or something, I think you'll like this. But also, like I said, Josh's vocals, even like something like Radiohead at times, just kind of the way that he sings, there's just a lot kind of going on, but it's all in this well-contained package. So, what did you think of this, Eric?
Yeah, I liked it. So this is probably going to be on par with my Wayne's World revelation, but I've never listened to the Queens of the Stone Age.
Oh, really?
I've never actively listened to this record, but I feel like I've heard most of the songs. So I don't know if I was just around it being played at points or if some of these songs were on the radio. But they didn't seem unfamiliar to me. I don't know why, but I really liked it. It's fun to come into things not knowing anything about it. Other people have been listening to this for over 20 years, and this is like my first time. So it kind of made me think of this theory, and maybe I'm way off base here. But considering this is 2000, right?
Right.
I kind of feel like, okay, so I don't know exactly how to put this, but okay, so grunge happened, right?
Sure.
And the dominant strain of grunge, the one that beat everything else out, that became popular, was sort of that Creed strain of grunge. And 3 Doors Down or whatever crap. I don't even know what any of this stuff is. And that's what was on the radio. That's what grunge became and turned into. I would say a lesser strain of what grunge became could be something like this. Like, it has those elements to it. It has so many different elements from that time. And like I said, I'm coming at this totally blind. I didn't hear a lot of, and I know I've heard of Queens of the Stone Age. I've heard people talk about them and how they're like a stoner rock band. I really didn't get that from this record.
No.
Honestly.
No.
This sounded to me, of all the groups that I know, it sounded, and I'm a huge fan of this band, it sounded almost just like the Toadies to me.
Oh, there you go.
Musically, it's like boom, it's right there. And all the things the Toadies do, because they jump around a lot too.
That's a great comparison.
And it's kind of like if Lane Staley from Alice in Chains was doing vocals for the Toadies. That's kind of what it sounded like to me. I heard hints of Clutch, and not just the end of the record where it reminded me of Elephant Riders with the kind of orchestra instruments coming in, or band instruments, sorry. But yeah, and then even some of the screamy vocals that happened near the end of the record reminded me a lot of when Kurt Cobain would do that.
Sure.
So if my comparisons are the Toadies, Alice in Chains, and Nirvana, then this has to sort of be in the realm of grunge. It's like a Venn diagram of the Toadies, Nirvana, and Alice in Chains, and in the middle is Queens of the Stone Age. But like I said, everyone I've ever talked to is like, oh yeah, they do stoner rock and like heavy stuff. And I was like, and when I heard this, I was like, whoa, this is not that at all. Like maybe it is and I'm missing it, or I'm just so used to things being heavy. I don't know, but
can I offer a little insight?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is the reason why people say that about Queens of the Stone Age.
Okay.
Is because Josh Homme was in Caius. Have you heard
Right.
Caius?
I have a little, not much, but yeah.
Caius were absolutely 100% a stoner rock band.
Right.
Like they were unapologetically stoner rock.
Yeah.
And then they broke up, and then Josh Homme formed Queens of the Stone Age. Queens of the Stone Age's first album that came out in 98, it was self-titled, was pretty much a stoner rock record.
Okay.
And it sounded, but not really. I mentioned like it was more stoner rock than this record. And so one of the reasons why everybody, I think, sort of that you've talked to put Queens of the Stone Age under the stoner rock banner is because of their heavy association with stoner rock, with
Right.
Caius.
Gotcha.
Now, and I think maybe a lot of them were kind of talking about referencing them from the first album, which was a lot closer to a stoner rock record than this one.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, since you have not listened to any other Queens of the Stone Age, one of the things I am going to say about this band, literally not one album that they've put out sounds the same.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
literally every single so the first record is pretty much like a stoner rock record, but not really. This record, I think you're onto something there. I can't believe I didn't pick out Toadies, because you're absolutely right. Toadies, like that is like the perfect
with Alice in Chains vocals, and not just the
Yeah.
lead vocal, with the background vocals too. And I mean, it sounds like I'm maybe being diminutive or something, but I love it. And the Toadies are one of my favorite bands of all time.
I guess I'm not really me personally, and I have nothing against Alice in Chains at all, but like I don't really hear the Alice in Chains like that. You're kind of
Okay.
I wonder if maybe you're referring to the songs that Mark Lanigan sings, because he's got more of a sort of like a. Did you notice that there were different vocalists on different
I
songs?
assumed that there were at least two.
Okay.
Yeah.
The tracks Autopilot and I can't remember what track number 8 is, and I've been listening to. I'm one of these people that's been listening to this for 20 years, and I still can't remember song titles. But anyway, those are the slower tracks, the more groove oriented sort of slower track. Like one of them was almost bordering on like musically like soul or something, like really kind of weird stuff.
Well, like like in Monsters in the Parasol, when he's just singing the chorus, it's like Monsters in the Parasol. Like it's got a.
You know what that song kind of reminds me of?
It's kind of like how I don't know how I heard like the slower Alice in Chains songs.
I can kind of
I don't know.
I kind of see where you're coming from, but you know what that song in particular musically reminds me of? The weirdness of the Pixies.
Yeah,
Like,
I can see the way the
kind of like
song works.
kind of like a poppy thing. Anyway, aside from all that, Songs for the Deaf, the album after this, is even crazier musically than this,
Okay.
and actually does have some like what you would call desert vibes to it. Like
Okay, right.
almost stoner, but not. Queens of the Stone Age, when they do like almost like a stoner rock thing, they almost never quite get there. You know what I mean? Like it's always kind of, and that's what I really like about them. But literally, like there's an album they released. Their last album they put out is called Villains, and they actually worked with Mark Ronson, who produces like a lot of pop musicians. And I was a little worried about it because I was like, well, how's this going to sound? And they utilized him perfectly. It's like some weird, like, it's almost like a new wave version of Queens of the Stone Age, but done right. And so, like, every single album they've put out is completely different. Era Vulgaris, which is a record that came out in like 2007. That one is like almost electronic in its execution. Like but it's not, because it's played all on instrument, or all not instruments.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
On guitars, bass, and drum. But it almost sounds like, like, matter of fact, I remember reading an interview where Josh compared the sound of Era Vulgaris to a construction worker, but a dark construction worker. It's like, that's a crazy description, but I can almost like. So yeah, I really encourage you to check out more of this band.
I will. If
you like this album,
I did like it a lot. I really liked the use of vibraphone. I think that's something that doesn't get utilized enough, and they added on at least 2 songs. So
sure,
it's pretty sweet.
I totally see what you're saying. Like when somebody says, "Hey, Queens of the Stone Age is a stoner rock band," and you give them this album, they're going to be like, "What?" And like, yeah, It is. That is one thing that I did kind of find a little misleading, is when people say, "Oh, Queens of the Stone Age are a stoner rock band." So yeah, definitely, definitely. Okay, so for our local release,
I still have one more.
Oh shit, you do, don't you?
I assume that you want to forget it.
No, not at all.
All right, so I'll just jump into it, and I'll try not to go off about this one, but I might, because
no, go ahead, because it's absolutely amazing. Anyway, go
ahead. So it's called. I'm gonna just mess it up, but I'll spell it for y'all. Lingua Ignota, or Lingua Ignota. Okay, Lingua is the first word. Ignota is the second word. I'm just going to call it Lingua Ignota. It means the unknown language or something like that. The record's called Caligula. Came out in 2019. I've been meaning to check this out since it came out. I got into it from things like Earth Eater. For some reason, was in the similar realm. So anyway, the main musician, her name is Christine Hayter. She's a classically trained multi-instrumentalist. This record is very intense. I mean, it may be one of the most intense records I've heard. It's shocking. You feel the person making it is an untrustworthy narrator, or like a untrustworthy director, kind of like when the first time you see Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you realize that the people making this can't really be trusted. I guess I can talk about what this sounds like, sort of. There are elements of classical big time. In fact, the third song, the reason I wanted to review this, what really hooked me, the third song, the main section of it, is Henry Purcell's funeral for the Queen Mary, which is the foundation of the theme for Clockwork Orange. Wendy Carlos took the funeral march for Queen Mary and reappropriated it on the synthesizer. Lingua Ignota turned around and used it for a sample. Anyway, this is beyond dark. This is like, I mean, I've expressed my undying love for Satan numerous times on the show. But if you also love the devil, you're gonna really like this record. There's elements of classical, like I said. There's elements of doom. There's elements of post-industrial. I really can't describe what this sounds like. I'm going to give you a list of musicians that I think have elements of this. First of all, Current 93. If you like Current 93, okay, you are going to love this. If you are always on the search for something dark, something disorienting, unstable, like I said, which definitely Current 93 is, things like Diamanda Gallis, things like Scott Walker, or the Swans, or Einstürzen der Neubauten, vocals somewhere between PJ Harvey, Diamanda Gallis, and that person from Con 8. I mean, it's like brutal black metal vocals at times. The music hardly ever is. Not that it doesn't veer into some like power violence sometimes or whatever. But it's mostly, I would say, classical oriented. A lot of piano, a lot of strings, synthesizers. And it's just heartbreaking, heartache, mysticism, paganism. It's sad and slow and just insanely intense. The only way I can really describe it, and this is going to sound poetic and stupid at the same time, but when you listen to it, all I can think of is this would be like being in the soul of a haunted house. I know that sounds lame, but like, if you really think of what a haunted house would be, like spirits trapped in a house, they would teeter between absolute sadness and crushing violent anger and torture, and all of that is on this record. And I just think it comes off as really beautiful and outrageously intense. And so, yeah, what do you think, Dan?
Man, this I guess I just kind of feel like if you don't feel something when you listen to this, then there's no way you can be human. It's just yeah, I agree with you that it's one of the most intense things I've ever heard, because it starts off Faithful Servant Friend of Christ, the first track, which is pretty much an ambient track, and she does this gorgeous singing. And then Do You Doubt Me, Traitor, the second song, which is like almost 10 minutes long, starts off like that, kind of. Somebody's trying to call me. Hold on a second. Okay, I'm going to decline the call. Do You Doubt Me, Traitor kind of starts off like that. And then halfway through the song, just all of a sudden, she just goes into the most terrifying screams I've ever heard in my life. It's
right?
like, it doesn't, it's, I can't even really compare them to black metal, because they're scarier than black metal. Even.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds real. Like, it sounds like, and I kind of looked into this record a little bit because I was so curious, and I guess that she is a survivor of domestic abuse.
Okay.
And so that kind of makes sense when you actually like think about the feeling that is being conveyed in this record and the themes and so like, then of course there's a song titled If the Poison Won't Take You, My Dogs Will.
Oh my God. Just the song titles should give you nightmares.
Yeah, it's chilling. It's seriously chilling. Like, may failure be your noose. It's so crazy. But I think what a lot of it, maybe I'm not right here. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe I'm missing the point. But it seems to me like a lot of it is just about escaping that sort of a situation with the most extreme possible expression. Like, maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's how I kind of interpret this whole record, because the way that she like is screaming at times, it's so chilling that it actually sounds like she is being tortured. Like it's crazy. Like, and so,
and it does come off as if she is psychologically.
Yeah, and so I wonder if maybe like this is just sort of like her way of sort of saying this shit is real. Like, you know what I mean? Because honestly, this is probably one of the most brutally honest portraits that I've ever heard, like sonically from anybody. Like it just, it sounds so real. Like I'm not sure if I can think of another record that emotionally sounds as real as this record. It's unbelievable.
I also think it's important to mention that there are moments of real beauty on here too, though.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Like there are entire songs that sound like Nico. I mean, they're gorgeous.
Well, that
and so it's
track,
not just torture and screaming.
No, not at all. But that first, those parts are so impactful. Is that even a word? Impactful.
It is now.
Impactful is what I meant to say. They're so impactful that like you almost leave the record forgetting the gorgeous parts, and then you remember that, oh wow, this was actually a very beautiful record. Oh, I mean, musically it's so gorgeous, but yeah, I definitely hear like in her voice echoes of PJ Harvey. It's like if PJ Harvey and Nocturno, Colto, and Fenriz from Dark Throne collaborated.
Yeah, I can see that.
What this record, it's like Dark Throne meets PJ Harvey.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fantastic.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, all right. I loved it. Oh, yeah, where are we at now?
Now we're ready for the local record.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. Jeez, I need to get my shit together tonight. This hint water is really, it's doing quite a...
Drinking that haint water?
That's
the problem. You're possessed.
Exactly. Well, it's water-infused blackberry essence. So something in there is really just screwing with my mind.
It's infusing you.
It's infusing.
You're infused with confusion.
Infused with confusion. Infusing the confusion.
Oh, that's pretty good.
That is good. So, yeah, maybe that'll be the podcast.
Oh, man. Watch out, y'all.
Yeah.
Get ready.
Get ready. Because, you know, if you're listening to this, which you're not going to be because you're already going to see the title by the time you're listening to this.
Oh, that's true. Wow, it's only a mystery to us. Wow.
Yes, exactly.
That's intense.
All right. So, what was the other one? Anyway, so this is the local section. And I got to say, guys, that we couldn't think of anybody who's putting out anything particularly new. So what we decided to do was dig up some classic archives of good bands from Iowa. And so at my suggestion, we're going to talk about this 5-song demo EP. I don't know which one it was intended to be. I'm assuming I'll just call it an EP from this band called Brazil. And the name of it is Love Lost Her Job Today. It can be found on 319dude.bandcamp.com, which is run by somebody from the Quad Cities. I'm not sure who it is, actually. But he keeps these archives of old, like, demos, and he puts them up on Bandcamp for free. And then I believe that the donations actually go to... Oh, God, I'm a terrible...
Consumer Association, an organization fighting for GMO food labeling and against the Muscatine Monsanto Corporation.
So there you go.
It doesn't actually say Muscatine. I just threw that in for fun.
Well, you know the Monsanto Corporation's no longer in Muscatine.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
No,
I don't go into Muscatine proper anymore.
It's
I go on the bypass, and I go about one block into Muscatine from the bypass.
So what is the prop? Oh, okay, got you. All right, so I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's a much better company that cares for our well-being. Bayer.
Oh, yeah.
You
Nice.
know, they went from GMO foods to GMO medicine.
Great.
Okay, so anyway, so thank you, Eric, because I had a hard time remembering where the donations go to. But anyway, so this is on 319dude.bandcamp.com. So is a old demo from a band called Girls of Comanche, who may or may not have had a member from this podcast. One of these two people, I'll let you guess which one it is.
Can I guess?
Yeah, I think so, Eric. And
Okay.
actually, there might be something with you somewhere on this page too, Eric. I don't know.
No.
Well, old scratch revival singers, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows?
I want to say that, or anyway. Okay, so aside from all that, Brazil. Brazil was one of many bands that Matthew Davis, rest in peace, was in from, I don't know, like the late 90s to, well, until his passing, which was in 2003, from Iowa City. And this was actually the first group that I saw him in. His much more well-known group, which started out as the Vita Blue and then became 10 Grand. I also saw a number of times. But this band, I think, actually predates Vita Blue by maybe a year. Perhaps I'm wrong on that. But I saw them, and I recall this. This is something I will never forget. I saw them at Gabe's in 99, and they were opening for Alkaline Trio and the Honor System. And this was before the Alkaline Trio got, really, really big. I mean, they were already kind of a local success around this area because they were from Chicago, and so they were an indie success, but before they got on a major label and all that stuff. And then the Honor System had former members of a band called the Broadways, which I was really into at that time. And Brazil were second out of 4 bands on that bill, and they were the only local band, the only local supporting band on that bill. And I remember the first band played, and I don't even remember who it was, but they were just kind of your typical sort of pop punk. Pretty good. I remember them being kind of fun, but yeah, they weren't really memorable. Brazil comes on stage, and it's 3 guys. And I remember just right away, it was interesting because the drummer had his drum set placed so that his back was to the audience. And I remember they set up and got tuned and everything. And I remember reading the description on the flyer that they were emo. And I still did not really know what emo was at this time. And so then they went into their first song. And it was actually the opening song on this demo called Eye Lights. And I was really into Sunny Day Real Estate and stuff like that at that time. But I had never really heard the term emo. No one really ever described Sunny Day as emo to me at that point. So when I kept seeing it on flyers, I kind of didn't know what the hell it was. I remember talking to John in our interview with John Burns. I actually ended up asking John Burns through an email back then what emo was, and he described it to me. And anyway, and I mentioned that I think during the John Burns interview. But anyway, so they went into their first song, and I just remember I couldn't take my eyes off the stage because the intensity within the first 2 minutes was already there. And then when it got to the heavy part, Matt just started flailing around on stage like a madman and screaming, and wasn't even like screaming into the mic half the time, but his screams were so loud that you could hear it over the guitar. And it was just, I had never seen anything like it. I was just, mind was blown, jaw was dropped. I mean, it was just like incredible. And I just stood there. I kept getting closer to the front stage. And after they got done playing, I just was like, there is no way any band can top this tonight. And I was right. I mean, in my opinion, I mean, there's probably, a lot of Alkaline Trio fans at that time that didn't want anything to do with them. You know what I mean? But for me, it was like, holy shit. Like, I had never heard anything like this. What this band sounded like was kind of Midwestern emo in a way, but with like these really just almost blood-curdling like sections of just pure raw like hardcore punk. I mean, at times it's like it sounds like, I don't know, like Thursday mixed with like the Bad Brains or something. And it's just like, or even like parts, even like the fast parts sound like sometimes something like Fugazi, but not really. But then there's like these parts of just pure beauty where it's like, it sounds like U2 or Joy Division or something like that, like early U2 records or, like stuff like that. You can tell that Matt was into all of this stuff. He was, probably into The Cure, probably into Bad Brains, probably into, I'm not sure, but the music that was coming out of these guys would suggest that. Now, I will say the recordings are kind of rough because I assume that, this was recorded in 99. So my assumption is it might have been recorded on a 4-track, maybe an 8-track. I'm not really sure, but the songs are just very, very powerful. And if you can just picture yourself at like a punk show with a band kind of going off with this style of music. I also just kind of feel like this was kind of a band that is an example of sort of like the emo core or emotional hardcore before it got really just, before it became really popular, which I hate. I hate to say that because that makes me sound like I'm being like some sort of old guy who's harping on the newer stuff. But like, it really was like you could tell that the music, while it had moments of pure beauty and even like melody in some of it, they weren't interested in like trying to commercialize their music. It was really something that I think was just kind of coming from them. And it just, I mean, the recording unfortunately doesn't do justice to what the band was. Seeing them live, it's kind of something that I think you had to experience to maybe 100% understand why it was so good and impactful at the time. And then his band 10 Grand, which was more of a almost like a straight up like Jesus Lizard meets Fugazi meets At the Drive-In, but also with elements of sort of emo, but I would say more upbeat, or just maybe faster at times, noisier even than Brazil. That band actually was kind of on their way to getting doing pretty big things. They were actually getting ready to head out on a big tour that was going to actually leave them pretty much. I think that from what I heard, I don't know if this is true, but I had heard that all the members basically moved out of their places and put all their stuff in storage because they were going to be gone on tour for like a year. And then it was revealed that they were actually, they caught the attention of Rick Ocasek, of all people, who was actually going to produce like their latest album, or at least there were negotiations of it. I'm not really sure. And then unfortunately, Matthew Davis passed away like 2 days before that tour was going to begin. And so I didn't know Matt, but he definitely made a huge impact on me as a local musician, and was just one piece of the puzzle of people like, I don't know, Fran Cadena, people like Eric Whitaker, who really just sort of made me kind of say, hey, you know what? I can do this. This is cool. Like, I like music. It really inspired me to do stuff like that. So yeah. What did you think of this, Eric?
Yeah. Hopefully, this won't be anticlimactic. I liked this. I will say that the recording was pretty rough. The vocals are very intense and very loud in the mix, but I think it really conveys the emotion of it. Like, you can't hear it and think that it's being phoned in at all. So I think that's great, and especially since it serves as sort of a time capsule, and I think that people that did know Matt Davis would like.
You kind of.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, sorry. You cut out there for a second.
Oh,
Eric.
okay. I would assume that people that knew Matt Davis are just fine with his voice being very prominent in the mix and being able to hear his voice, and so I think that's cool. I never met Matt Davis, or at least didn't know him. I was just not in the loop. I wasn't in the scene. I wasn't in the area. And so I didn't know of this band. I didn't know of most of the things happening around this time. And I think one of my bands, Gimpy, might have played with 10 Grand one time. But we didn't really interact. We just were on a show together. So a lot of this went right by me. I didn't know anything about it. Of course, I've, gotten to know people here in the area who are connected, or at least good friends, or were good friends with Matt, like Luke Tweedy and Will Whitmore, and just some other people. But yeah, I never personally knew him. So, but he sounds like he was a pretty important person in the scene and had an impact on a lot of people. So, but yeah, this was cool. I think I need to spend some time maybe listening to 10 Grand to get a better idea of what his music probably sounded like. Because, like I said, the recording of this makes it difficult to, I think, really truly get what's happening a little bit. But what I could get from it, though, I loved the interplay between the guitar and the bass. A lot of intricate parts where you can't even tell what is the guitar and what is the bass. And the drums are really cool. They're like really like Fugazi-ish. Or, it's funny, when I was listening to this, I never realized musically how similar I think Modest Mouse and Fugazi are. Like,
absolutely.
I've never thought about it until I was listening to this, and I was just like, oh, this sounds like Fugazi. And then literally within the same second, I'm like, actually, this sounds like Modest Mouse. And so that's interesting to me, that hearing this made me realize sort of that musical similarity with the drums being very out front and very it's complicated drumming, but it's sparse in its own way too. It's really deliberate drumming, if that makes any sense. There's not a lot of messing around. It's complicated, but it's also, every hit is on purpose and has an impact and means something. And then around that, you just have a lot of really intricate guitar and bass happening. And then on top of that, you have shrieked vocals, I would almost say. Not shrieked. That might be shouted for sure. but they do enter into a I don't know how to say it. They enter into a not necessarily tonal place. They become a little atonal. They become pure emotion versus singing, and I think that's really cool. So I ended up really liking this. Like I said, I think I need to check out some more of Matt Davis's output to really hear what he was doing. So, and I'm excited to do that. So I think it was a cool pick. And again, to come into it sort of blind versus everyone else having this background and knowledge and experiences, it was cool to hear it. But I don't think that I will ever understand truly what this sounds like to other people that were part of the experience. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I would strongly, that's actually a really great thing to mention is that those of you who do go to 319dude.bandcamp.com and check this out, I would strongly recommend also checking out the band 10 Grand. None of their stuff is on Spotify, but you can go to YouTube and they actually have 2 albums that actually were released under the name 10 Grand, which was This Is the Way to Rule and the comprehensive list of everyone who's ever done anything wrong to us, which there's actually kind of a cool story behind that. The first track actually lists off in one of those computer voices a bunch of people that have actually done wrong things to them.
Wow.
And like there's one part where it's like the asshole who stole Joel's PlayStation.
Wow, nice.
And then there's like another part where it's the Get Up Kids. And I was like, the Get Up Kids? Well, I guess the Get Up Kids played with 10 Grand when they were the Vita Blue and treated them pretty awful, I guess. I don't really know the story behind that. But anyway, but that is a killer record. And then their first record came out under the name the Vita Blue. They never did repress it with the name 10 Grand. It's called Our Miracle Point of Contact, which is also a great title. Then what happened was the dude from Fish did a side project called Vita Blue and got wind of them and actually sent them a cease and desist letter. And then they said, well, we've had the name Vita Blue longer than you have. And they ended up, the legend is that they ended up getting paid like 10 grand. And that's where they came up with the name 10 grand.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I've heard that before.
Which is a great fucking story. So yeah, it's 10 Grand were freaking awesome. If you're into Fugazi, At the Drive-In, Nation of Ulysses, all that stuff. That was the kind of stuff that they were doing.
Sweet.
With kind of an emo hint as well. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed the show, but it's time for me and Eric to go.
Wow. Did you just write that? You've been working on it?
In my head.
Oh.
I pulled a Travis Munson. So, like, that's literally like
you smacked a bunch of people with a giant centipede?
No, I did not do that.
Oh, okay.
That I could never reach that level of intellect. But I did come up with something off the top of my head that made people smile, maybe.
Wow. I did.
You did too?
Yeah. No, I mean, I smiled.
Oh, okay.
I actually haven't stopped smiling this entire time. It's like my little secret when I think about people listening to this and they have no idea that I just have this big, creepy smile on my face the entire time we do the podcast.
Yeah, no, I do the same thing. Like
it's like the Richard D. James album cover over here the whole time.
I think that would be we should start doing like video of this on the YouTube channel.
I'll also put a shirt on.
When we're like, yeah, we'll have to put clothes on.
Yeah.
But anyway, that would be really funny to see like our facial, like we're laughing, like you're talking about like something like what the heck is her name again?
Lingua Ignota.
Lingua Ignota. And I'm sitting there smiling when you're talking about, which I shouldn't be smiling about that, but I do smile about things that I shouldn't smile about. Like when we were talking about Colts and gangs.
I'm still smiling from that. So,
Speaking of which, Lingua tacos. Have you ever heard of them?
tongue tacos.
Tongue tacos, yeah.
Yeah. Back when I was a big meat eater, I would go to this place up here called La Regia, and I would get 2 cheek tacos and 1 tongue taco, and I would just basically eat an entire cow mouth, and I thought that was really funny.
I always thought it was really. I thought it was really. I think it's really interesting that people eat like parts of the animal that literally are like pig intestines.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
The tongue. Have you had tongue tacos?
Yes, I
Oh,
did
man.
try.
I love them.
Yeah.
I loved them.
Yeah.
They were the most tender meat. The cheeks are very good too.
I've never eaten a cow cheek, but
Well, get on it.
cow
Have one for
cow
me.
tongue is good.
I'll live vicariously through your
Well, maybe
cheek
they'll-
eating.
Maybe they'll come out with vegan cheeks, plant-based cheeks.
Base cheeks. That's my
You never
ass.
know. Plant-based cheeks and tongues.
No. No. No.
You never
That is the
know.
end of the show. We're not talking about ass tongues.
Well, Eric doesn't want to talk about ass tongues.
Whether it comes
that's
out of an
okay.
ass or goes into an ass, See, now we have to label this explicit. We just got into obscene territory. So
You mean we didn't with the Colts and gangs?
no.
Oh, okay.
It has to be created to titillate. That's the definition of obscene. And so
So
you know,
we've titillated a lot.
I think with our last subject, maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
It depends on if you're a millennial or not. I've heard they're pretty into it.
Yeah, they like all of this stuff. They like the cheeks and tongues.
Oh my God, let's end this show.
All right, but it's okay because it's plant based, so
Oh no.
no harm.
Okay. All right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, should I do a singing outro again?
Well, yeah, we should also say things like, you can find us on Spotify.
Oh, I got an idea.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can find us on Spotify. And you can also find us on transistor.fm. And my Instagram is Dan_the_ruler. And Eric, yours is Eric
Erie
underscore
Erie. Eric. Oh,
Okay.
I'm supposed to sing __ Whitaker. Should I do your voice too?
There you go.
And
You know-
also Accelerativ Thrust has its own Instagram too.
And Facebook
And
as
Facebook.
well.
Oh God. All right.
Y'all, next week we'll do grindcore renditions
Oh,
of our
no.
outro.
And I'll do my impression of Dan doing grindcore. It's gonna be
Oh, wait.
it's gonna be cool.
That is something I am dying to hear.
Oh man.
So-
even with the 10 minutes edited out for my cat attack, this
Wait,
is
do
way
you really-
too long.
Yeah, this is bordering on stupid today.
Yeah.
But
Bordering. God damn, that's a wide border, apparently.
it's a wide border of stupid. Oh, the titles just keep coming out of the
Oh
tongue.
my God. Girls,
And cheek.
enough tongues. Okay. This is it.
All right, folks, you guys all have a good night.
Okay. Bye, y'all.
Bye.